Square Enix has re-released one of its best games ever, Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, an already excellent game with enhanced graphics, added voice acting, and quality of life changes. I've personally never played the game myself, but I've heard nonstop about how great the original is and the remaster, so I thought to myself, why not play one of Square Enix's worst games ever? Left Alive was released back in 2019 and was only available on the PS4 and Windows, largely going under the radar for many people as that was the period of people slowly moving out of the PS4 and into the hype that was the PS5, and then slowly being disappointed by the lack of PS5 exclusive games over the years, and we're ongoing to year 5 or 6 soon with the PS5, and it's looking pretty sad out here. The game was developed by Illinoix and Silicon Studio, not really big heavy hitter names, but they made a few games that some of you guys may have heard of. Silicon Studio has made a few mobile games here and there, and they also worked on a Bravely Default game that I actually had no idea existed, while Illinoix has worked on a Sword Art Online game and some Gundam Breaker games as well. It's also worth noting that I got all this information from MobyGames.com, and for some odd reason, Illinoix hasn't listed Left Alive as one of the credited games they worked on. I wonder if there's a reason for that. We'll find out soon enough. Left Alive takes place within the universe of Front Mission. Front Mission is a series by Square Enix where the premise is about tactical gameplay with mechs called Wanzers, coming from the German words Wander, which is to walk, and Panzer, which is armor, forming the word Wander Panzer, walking armor. I hope I said that correctly. German viewers, go ahead and feel free to flame me for saying that horribly as an American person. Wanzers have a lot of cool designs, and it's a shame because Front Mission is an older franchise that hasn't received too much love from Square Enix in recent times, and the only best way to get into the franchise right now is to probably play the remaster games, to which aren't really the best remaster games from what I've heard as well, which kind of sucks, but it's all we got at the moment. And while Front Mission has a tactical gameplay style, Left Alive took a different approach compared to its sister games. Left Alive was branded as an action-adventure stealth game with a third-person shooter style. And just looking at the game's art alone, doesn't it kind of remind you of another stealth series that was famous for its gameplay and story? And before you start thinking they completely ripped off Metal Gear Solid, that's not completely the case here. They actually invited the artist of Metal Gear to come work on Left Alive. Yoji Shinkawa did the art for Left Alive, and the art is stunning as always. He's one amazing artist. So stealth action with an artist from another famous stealth franchise, Left Alive is bound to be a success, right? Right? I came across Left Alive a while ago. I am a bit familiar with the Front Mission franchise, and I thought this game had a really cool premise. The graphics for a 2019 game looks pretty good. I don't really have any hard complaints. The change from having to control multiple mechs to having to only use one soldier at a time was a unique take to the franchise. And I'm the kind of person that would see a bad review for a game and still be curious enough to try out the game because I want to see what the hype is all about and see how bad it is, even though I may like the game because of its looks alone. I did pick up this game for half off during a Steam sale, and I thought now would be the best time to play this game because it was sitting on my wish list for a long time. Time to finally see if this game actually lives up to its really bad reviews or not. And spoiler alert, it kind of does. So let me talk about the positives of the game, and I'll admit it's not all horrible out here. Instead of being in mechs, the game is more about surviving in the middle of a war-torn city trying to find an escape out. In the beginning, you're not equipped with a lot of weapons and ammo to begin with, so you slowly craft traps, bombs, and other tools from objects you find laying about in the game. The whole idea and setting of the game was really intriguing to me. Scrapping together random empty cans with explosives to make improvised bombs, creating patches to stop bleeding from vodka and cloth. If you see a heavily armed group of enemies or even a colossal-sized Wanzer, you avoid at all costs or face death if you're not prepared. You could follow the survival gameplay style or forgo it all and just go in guns blazing, but it will be harder on the latter for sure. The game also features a weight system, so you can't have all your weapons and everything on you at all times. Instead, you'll need to pick and choose necessary items and drop off the rest at an item box or on the ground. I like this because it brings a bit of realism to the game with how we can't just carry every single thing on us and we need to choose carefully. There are also bags that you can find that can increase your inventory space, so that helps, but they're also missable, so make sure you keep your eyes out for that. The game's environment can look really good when the texture loads properly. I'm also a sucker for snow and night type settings, so maybe I'm just being a bit biased, but this game really hits all the check marks for me to appreciate a really cool environment. Although this game is mostly about you being outside of a mech compared to the other Front Mission games, there are some moments where you actually control a mech and Left Alive. This can be really cool 1 second or very frustrating as you probably don't have enough experience controlling the mechs, which can lead to your death fairly quickly. It can be a bit clunky to use the mechs in the game, and I'll talk more about that when I get into controls. I will say the music of the game is pretty good. It's not really remarkable to me, but the sounds really fit the game and nothing really seemed out of place. It fits the vibe of the game with its military and heroic sounds. If you expected the music to be cool and smooth like in Metal Gear Solid 2, which I did for some odd reason. It's not here. Instead, you'll have more action-y and tense music. When you try to sneak around though, there is no music, just the sounds of war all around you. But the second you're caught, it just starts going off. Throughout the entire game, you're pretty much by yourself. You have like no AI companions to help you out. So you're pretty much having to rely on guerrilla-style warfare to use against your enemies, and it's a really rewarding feeling when your plan comes together and you successfully ambush enemies. Especially with what little you have. Creating explosive traps and having enemies walk into it is very satisfying. And the game kinda sounds good on paper, if it wasn't for all the problems that it had. And there's quite a number of gripes that I have with this game, so let me just go through them, and there's a lot to go through. One of the biggest offenders that this game has already is the fact that it has a $60 price tag to it. That is a lot for a game that at best is just okay. From the amount of negative reviews and even from my own play of the game, this is far from a $60 game. And I got the game at half price off and I still felt cheated. I really feel bad for those who pay for full price for this game, especially on release day when this game was looking really good and seemed really promising until you play it and it turns out that it really wasn't promising at all. And it's sad because you can easily take your $60 and go spend it on literally anything else instead of being dissatisfied with this game. And I think that's the best word to describe the experience of playing this game. It's just very dissatisfying. The game will throw a lot of big informational dumps like this to teach you how to play the game, so you'll need to take a second and read to learn. It'd be better if the game taught you in a more smaller and digestible way instead of just throwing this all at you and either you read it or you pretty much just go, I kind of get the gist of it and move on. And as I mentioned before, the controls for the game don't really feel the best. It feels pretty clunky to play. The movements of the game feel heavy, and don't expect to find anything smooth like you would find in Metal Gear Solid 5, a game that came out a few years prior to this. I played this game on PC with keyboard and mouse, and I don't know what it's like to play on a controller, so maybe it's a bit better feeling on that instead. Moving around just feels too heavy and not precise, which is not good when you're playing a game where stealth is your main mechanic for survival. You want to make sure your movements are not going to screw you over when you're trying to make some tight maneuvers. Sometimes you think you got a shot lined up because of your aim reticle, but if your character is positioned behind something, you may end up shooting a wall instead. It throws you off because you think you got a shot, but then you wasted ammo in a game that really hinges on you being careful with resources. And swapping between equipment in this game can be a bit annoying on PC. 1, 2, and 3 keys are used for your equipped weapons. 4 is for anything related to medical, 5 is for throwables like grenades, and lastly 6 is for traps. Swapping to something specific can be a bit annoying, so let's say you want to use EMP grenades instead of regular grenades, so you have to repeatedly press the 4 key until you get to one. Alternatively, you can't hold down any of the 4 through 6 keys to open up a wheel for easier selection. But sometimes I forget this because I am probably panicking in the middle of a fight and I don't remember to use it. While the game really emphasizes stealth, you would think a majority of the time the best move is to sneak around the entire time you play, but there are some segments that force you into battle, and it can be a bit jarring to go from a stealth mindset to getting ready to hold off a horde of enemies. And it's made even tougher when you remember this game is about limited resources, so having to avoid most situations and conserve your ammo for mandatory action sequence is probably the best move. It's all made even harder on the higher difficulties where the game limits you on the amount of ammo you can hold, and enemies do more damage and have more HP themselves. I played the game on normal difficulty, and I still found the game to be fairly challenging. I don't ever want to try this game on a harder difficulty because I already have nightmares from playing on normal already. If you think you can simply headshot an enemy, then you're wrong. On normal, I found the grunt enemies taking about 3 to 4 headshots before finally going down with a pistol, but I can kind of understand that because the game does outright tell you in the lore that the enemies are well equipped with really powerful battle armor that pretty much protects them, so makes sense. We're at war and they're ready to pretty much take some hits before they go down. During my play of the game, I never found any silencers for my guns, so pretty much going guns loud was probably a bad idea for most situations. And this is one of the weirdest things I found about this game. For a stealth game, there is a really weird lack of stealth kills or takedowns. And instead of having the option to stealth kill your enemies, your character just does these super dramatic swing attacks until the enemy falls down, and once they're down, you can finally pull off a finishing attack. The only weapons in this game for melee options are a crowbar, which is apparently a Half-Life collab thing, or a sledgehammer, which you have to be really lucky to have on you because it's super heavy that your inventory cannot hold it for most of the time in the game. The problem with melee attacks is that there's a chance of other enemies seeing you when you're swinging about. A painful thing to note, melee weapons have durability, so don't expect to get around the whole game with just one crowbar. And on the same note, melee weapons can break mid-swing, and when you want to deliver the final blow to take somebody out, it won't finish them off. They'll just roll back up and get back to fighting you right away. It really makes you prep in advance and make sure all your weapons are in top condition, or else you'll find yourself dead because you did not prepare properly. Oh, fun fact about stealth. I thought at first by crouching you eliminate sounds made by you. it doesn't do anything actually. Crouching more just hides your character better so you don't get caught by enemies when you hide behind objects. So you can actually run around the whole game and the enemies just won't hear you. I found this out because I was getting really tired of crouch walking towards the later half of the game. This next thing is more of a me thing and kind of a nitpick, but I wish there was more options to save and left alive. You can only save at certain points in the game and the save points are very few and far. So I found myself backtracking often at previous save points in order to not repeat cutscenes or fights if I was to die. Oh, and I hope you're really good at conversational skills because this game has a lot of dialogue options that can lead to pretty bad circumstances if you don't actually pick the right options. You'll have moments where you can choose what you want your character to say, and your choices do matter. If you piss off the wrong guy, he'll kill somebody, and if you didn't have a save close by, you'll have to start the level all over again, and that's not too fun to do because this game is already frustrating to play. The sounds in the game just doesn't sound right at times. Landing a final impact with a melee weapon doesn't really feel satisfying. You don't get a huge hit sound effect, it just kind of falls flat. Side note, I do find it kind of funny when you stab an enemy in the crotch with your crowbar to finish them off. It just happens all the time and it's funny to see. Sometimes the gun sound effects are lacking and don't really have much of an impact, or sometimes they don't play properly at all. 1 second the sounds can be loud and another it can be just too soft and you don't hear anything. Okay, so now it's time for me to talk about one of the more annoying parts of this entire game. Now, in most games, you would have some kind of companion who would give you hints or just dialogue to keep you company. I typically don't mind that at all. It keeps the game feeling a bit more alive and I don't feel too lonely when I play. But the game's AI companion, Kashka, has one big problem. Whenever an enemy gets near you, she alerts you to them. Helpful at first, until she keeps saying it all the time.
Caution, the enemy is approaching. Caution. The enemy is approaching. Caution. The enemy is approaching.
Even if you know an enemy is nearby, she will keep telling you anyways. If somebody is next to you, above, below, or behind a wall, she will tell you. Which makes things a bit harder because you won't know where somebody is, but she'll keep constantly telling you, keeping you on edge at all times.
Caution.
If an enemy is nearby you, the game will show you a red indicator line at the direction of where they're at. It's not the best thing ever, but it gets the job done. But having to hear Kashka constantly tell you that an enemy is nearby when you already know can get bothersome. It gets annoying really fast. I get it's helpful, but it comes to a point where it becomes way too much. The animations in the game can be a bit funky, not a huge problem, but it can be funny to see guys just instantly ragdoll when they die. Enemies flying in the air after you blast them with a shotgun can also be really funny to see as well. And for some odd reason, guns just fly out of everyone's hands when they're dead. I don't know why it happens, it's just funny, maybe there's a real explanation behind this, but I'm not gonna question it too much. The enemy AI can be a bit funky. They can be bad at battling sometimes, they'll just charge you instead of taking cover 1 second, or they'll try to actually circle around you and flank you, which is actually pretty smart. It's 50-50, who knows, it could be smart 1 second or dumb the next. Like here, this guy is just staring at a wall for a good chunk of time, just patrolling this one area and never really moving at all. In this battle here, I'm fighting a squad of enemy soldiers when I realize there's another one just down the hallway of this tight sewer area. But yet, the other squad didn't hear the battling at all, and they didn't really fight me until they actually saw me. It's great for me, but it's just funny that the enemies didn't hear the battling just down the hallway from them. At this moment here, I'm pinned down by an army of snipers locking me down, but no other soldiers are coming by to help me or seeing what's going on, even though there's one like right around the corner for me. It's like the enemy soldiers don't communicate with each other at all. Oh, if you happen to kill enemies, don't expect to be able to pick up their weapons or any additional ammo because you just can't do that in this game. Maybe there is some kind of lore explanation for it. I mean, this game takes place in the year like 2100, so maybe there's something there, but I just don't know past that, honestly. Any new weapons or equipment just comes from the item boxes scattered throughout the game in each level. I do want to highlight one cool thing I noticed about the enemy AI. The enemies remember your last location versus just knowing where you're at all times like in Metal Gear. This makes things a bit easier when you need to slip away rather than the enemy being on your tail at all times. Pretty nice, I like that actually. This game does reuse a lot of the same maps, so be ready to memorize locations on one character because the next one will probably end up there as well. For chapters 4 through 7, it was the same map back to back, and it got a bit old, especially when you're spending so much time trying to sneak around and you die and you restart, and it's even more time spent on the map and you have to keep going. Okay, and I know that I said Kashka is one of the more annoying parts about the entire game. This next thing is actually the worst mechanic out of the entire game that really affects the ending of the game as well if you don't do it properly. While you have your 3 main characters and some side characters to keep alive, there are random NPC civilians who need to be saved mid-mission. I get it, we're the heroes who need to come in and save the day for innocent civilians, but holy cow is it hard keeping these people alive. But some civilians are not in the right mindset, so you'll have to work your conversational skills to convince them to come with you. This woman on chapter 3 has gone mad and wants to take vengeance against the entire enemy soldiers. She's clearly not thinking right and has no combat experience, so you need to convince her to drop the idea and get her to safety. But if you fail to convince her, she just offs herself, and that's a civilian lost. So to prevent that, you have to go back, reload a save, and then go through all the cutscenes and maybe some battles in between to finally get back to her and try your luck at trying to convince her once more. So because of the limited amount of save points in the game, you have to load back a previous save, which can take a bit of time, go back through all the enemy soldiers, loading screens, and etc., and it's just painful to deal with. But once you have a civilian ready to go, they'll follow your call to move out, and they'll follow a set path to get to a shelter. And for one of the worst parts about this, you cannot alter a civilian's path. You'll have to take out every soldier between them and the shelter before they get caught. So even if there's a clear route to a safe shelter that you probably cleared out earlier, they won't go to that. No, they want to go to a specific different one. And it gets frustrating because you're just like, why? You just go to the other one. I don't get it. At first, you just deal with the enemy foot soldiers and their drones, so it's not too bad. And then it gets worse when you finally run into tanks or whole-ass Wanzers that are in the way of the civilians and their shelter. I have no idea if I can take on tanks or Wanzers because I thought the whole game was about trying to find the safest route to get to safety and not have to take any fights against any big machines. So I did the practical thing, and that is to not save any more civilians after a certain point in the game. So after chapter 4, I gave up. I am so sorry. It was just too much of a hassle, and I just got tired of it. And the tragic part about this whole entire civilian saving thing is the fact that you need to save all of them in order to get the best ending of the game. So unfortunately for me, I just went with the good ending, nothing too great or nothing too horrible, but I'll talk more about the endings later. Those are the majority of the things that I found to be mildly frustrating when I played the game. Some other complaints I heard from other people included the voice acting, which I thought was fine. I didn't have any huge issues with the voice acting. As long as it wasn't on the level of the room acting, then I think we're fine.
I barely managed to save myself. What makes you think I can take care of anyone else?
It's up to you to decide whether you'll do it or not.
Now, there's some cheesy dialogue in the game, like how this enemy soldier guy keeps referencing baseball in a life or death situation.
You like baseball? I can't get enough of it. 3 strikes and you're out. And you've already got 1. I wouldn't talk like that if I were you.
And there's some moments where the characters just sound too cliche. I think that's probably the worst of it when it comes to performances, though. I don't really want to chalk it up to the problem of the voice actors, honestly, because I think they did a fine job. I would say this is more in line with problems with the voice direction and the director, so they kind of chose this, they were okay with this, but I personally don't mind the cheese. I thought it was not too bad. It's whatever. You know, I'm not looking for Oscar-worthy acting in this game. People had issues with bugs and other technical issues, but I have a pretty strong computer, so I can't really comment on that. Some time frames did go down at certain moments, but not to the extent that it made it unplayable. Loading screens were longer than I thought they would be, and this is made even more apparent when you have to reload a save and redo a segment in the game, so loading screens were just pretty much a really big annoyance in this game. But for those who encountered really bad bugs of the game, I do think it's valid to bring up. I'm just saying I didn't really encounter too many myself as I played through the game. And one last thing people really did not like about this game was the World of Tanks collab that they had with Left Alive. You'll find many posters or lore items in the game that talk about World of Tanks and their tanks. Some people say this completely ruins the immersion of the game and it's just a shameless plug for the game. I can get that, but personally for me, it didn't really bother me as much as I thought it would. I'm just saying, surprisingly, it really just didn't bother me that much. I had a silly laugh out of it because I think I needed a good laugh or else I'll go crazy from playing this game. But overall though, I would say the negatives of Left Alive really hampered my enjoyment of the game. I really wanted to like this game, especially if it meant another shot at Front Mission getting a new game in its series, but I cannot in good faith recommend this game to anybody out there. I would say maybe for $5, sure, but even then, like, you still got the game in your backlog and you have to beat it at least one day, you know? I have that kind of problem. Just avoid this game at all cost. Just don't waste $60 on this game. How about that? Just if you could spend $5, but don't go any more than that. Okay, so the game may not have the best mechanics ever, the most memorable music, the crazy voice acting, there's a lot not so great about this game. But is the story at least its saving grace? Here is the premise of Left Alive. There's no big story spoilers. I'll say that when I get there, but I don't really think many people would want to even try to play this game in the first place. But Left Alive takes place in an alternate universe from ours, where world powers have combined their efforts into becoming superpower nations. Some examples include the Oceania Cooperative Union that is comprised of Southeast Asia, Oceania, and Australia, the United States of New Continent made up of both North and South America, the European Community, which is kind of self-explanatory at that point, and the Republic of Zaftra, which is made up of Russia and other surrounding countries. In the year 2127, 2 countries located near the Black Sea have engaged in a war, and I do want to note that the location of these 2 countries engaging in a war is very similar to a real-life conflict going on, but everything in this game is fictional. It just so happens there was a huge coincidence of when this game was released and everything. Moving on, the Republic of Garmonia declared war and invaded the Republic of Ruthania. The border city Novoslava became a battlefield overnight, highlighting how quickly civilians can be pulled into a vicious war and become victims themselves. Ruthanian forces are quickly defeated, and all that remains are remnants of their force trying to retreat to safety. The game's main messages and themes include baseline things like how war is bad and civilians are also casualties of war, to more complex things like conspiracies and shadowy behind-the-scene forces pulling strings to orchestrate bloodshed, so like proxy war type things. Our 3 main characters are caught in the middle of it all and are trying to escape the conflict. Mikhail is a young Wanzer pilot for Ruthania. His Wanzer and his squad are destroyed and he's alone behind enemy lines. While he's a skilled Wanzer pilot, his close quarter combat skills will be tested in order to secure an exit out of the city. The only problem though is that he never signed up for war and he only wanted to drive mechs, so he's gonna need a lot of luck. Olga is a police captain in Novoslava. Formerly, she was a Garmonian soldier until she was discharged for personal reasons. With Garmonian soldiers invading her now homeland of Ruthania, she'll need to face her former comrades and escape the city. She'll also need to face her past in more ways than one. And lastly, we have Leonid, also known as Leo. He's a former elite member of the NGFP, a group that fought for Novoslava's liberation before the events of Left Alive. He's not entirely a good guy, though. He was arrested for the murder of his group's leader, Ruslan, and sentenced to execution. But for some odd reason, he's still standing today, and we're gonna have to see why that's the case. There are some important side characters as well, which we'll get to as we keep going in the story, and Koshka, their AI companion, will guide them throughout the game, provided by the Ruthanian army. Now, sadly, even though we play as 3 different characters, there's really no distinct playstyle amongst all of them. They all pretty much play the same. Olga does come with a stun gun, though, but that kinda sucks, so don't ever rely on that for anything. That's it for the premise of Left Alive. There are 14 chapters in total, so it's not a totally long game, especially when you're like me, where you start rushing towards the end of the game because you got tired of doing stealth and tired of the game as a whole. So if you ever want to play this game yourself, which I don't understand why anybody would want to play this game after what I talked about, this is your time to leave. If not, here is the full story of Left Alive. The first chapter is about Mikhail, who is alone with no Wanzer to help him. You won't be able to hang around for too long because he's already spotted by a group of enemy soldiers. Like, actually, you want to get a move on because the enemy soldiers will start firing at you if you don't get a move on. Presentational wise, the game's UI and the setting are very nice, I'll have to admit that. I like the style they're going for with the UI, it feels very futuristic, if that makes any sense. After escaping the initial enemy soldiers, he comes across a group of civilians being executed, illustrating how vicious the enemy soldiers are and how bad war is. Here are some of the melee combat of the game. It's just kind of goofy. I really wish we had stealth takedowns. Ugh. A wounded Ruthenian soldier is found resting and you can speak to him. I'm not entirely sure if being rude to him or being nice makes a difference as the guy is executed shortly after, and I don't think we can save him sadly. This is sadly one of the choices that don't really matter, but other choices do matter a bit. Koshka luckily reconnects with Mikhail, and now he's got her guidance to help him out of the situation. Fun fact, Koshka is the Russian word for cat. You'll see a lot of Russian and Eastern European influence in this game as it takes place in the area of that world, and I kind of dig that actually. I think it's really cool they did their research for this game. We make our way through the streets and into the underground. Once again, I do want to highlight it's really cool to sneak through a war-torn city. I will always respect this game's presentation for it. For the most part, everything up to the sewer part seems to be sneakable and we're able to get around without battling. However, the sewers highlight the first part of what seems to be unavoidable battles. The tunnels seem to be too tight to sneak past enemies, so this is where you actually have to try to pick off enemies slowly or go in guns blazing. And I'll be honest, I didn't have a great time, so here's them kind of messing me up a bit. As much as I want to blame the game for its controls and everything, I'm gonna kind of chalk this up to being, you know, not being used to all the game's combat just yet, so skill issue for now. I will say though, it's really cool seeing the enemies flank me, did not expect that. One of the rare moments of the AI being very smart. After making it through, we run into our wounded commander. He pulls the classic act of save yourself and leave me behind, I'm done for, but we don't want to leave the guy behind. Before we can try and save the commander, a large force is approaching us and we have to defend him. Luckily, his broken down mech seems to still be operational, at least with the upper half of the body. We're able to mount it and basically control a powerful turret, illustrating how powerful Wanzers can be, especially when you only have half the body to use. We save the commander from the horde of soldiers and give him a medical kit from our inventory, and it seems like he'll be saved, right? Wrong. Out of nowhere, a soldier with an awful haircut, I can't get over this guy's hair, pops out, threatening us to pick up our gun and fight. This is the guy who makes a lot of baseball references because why not? Some people say it's really cheesy and cringe, but I think it adds character, so I don't mind it entirely. He's able to smell the rookie off Mikhail and threatens him to fight. If you fail to say the right thing, the enemy kills our commander, and the game moves on. But if you want to save this guy, you have to reload the latest save, which will be right before the sewer section, meaning you have to do the whole entire sewer battles, plus the mech battle at the end again, to finally have your chance at picking the right dialogue option. And it took me about 2 tries to finally get the right dialogue option, so there's a lot of time spent on the first level. The best options are to respect the guy, but show no fear when talking to him, and saying that you'll take a bullet for your commander instead. You'll impress the enemy commander enough that he'll let you both live for now, and that's the end of that. But having to repeat that all 3 times to get the right ending was not fun at all. For Chapter 2, we switch over to Olga, who's investigating a string of missing persons cases. She's trying to find Dr. Lavrov. And just a note, it seems like this mission takes place right before the whole entire war breaks out, so you're seeing the events right before it all happens. Her investigation brings her to the slums. Here she encounters a child who's familiar with the doctor. Before she's able to get more information, the Garmonian soldiers invade the slums and bomb the area. She comes to, but finds that the girl is nowhere to be found. With Koshka's help, she'll need to escape the slum, which is now heavily overrun by enemy soldiers. As she makes her escape, she also wants to find any survivors laying around. And this is where the game will introduce the survivor mechanic. She encounters the game's very first survivor, who happens to be an associate of Dr. Lavrov. This guy actually brings the doctor young runaway or orphan girls in exchange for money at the abandoned hospital. Pretty disgusting to hear, but despite this, we still have to bring the guy into a shelter. And this one is simple enough at least. The way to the shelter isn't too heavily guarded, and we just need to take out a few soldiers along the way. Now, our main quest is to make our way over to the abandoned hospital along the battlefield, but on the way over, we'll try to save a few survivors as we see them. Here we save another one about to be executed, but as you can see, I was having trouble aiming in this game. And the next survivor happened to be in the safe house, which I didn't know he was in here. I just wanted to save the game actually. But this encounter was extremely tough for me, as you get rushed by 3 soldiers and I wasn't prepared to deal with all of them right away, so it took me a few tries to finally get them. Not only that, but if you were to die and the game would reload a save, it would bring you to the point of right before the soldiers would break into the save point area, and it was really hard to set up traps beforehand. The winning play was to throw a grenade as they climbed the ladder, as they couldn't react to it fast enough and dodge away, but trying to save the survivor was the start of me getting annoyed with the game as a whole. Civvies would just stop in place and cower when enemies are nearby, and they'll just keep repeating this voice line of, oh my god, this is exactly the opposite of safe, and they'll keep repeating this line like pretty much throughout the entire game, so get used to it.
Oh my god, this is the exact opposite of safe!
Another annoying part about this battle was the fact that I was constantly running out of ammo and dying, so trying to save myself and a civilian was not an easy thing to do. It wasn't fun at all. But after a few tries, I managed to finally get it, and that's all the civilians save for this level. We finally reached the abandoned hospital, which happened to have ammo and goodies lying about. I wonder why. Here we find the doctor at gunpoint shortly before being executed by Major Borodin, who he has history with Olga. Olga questions him on why he executed the doctor, but he refuses to answer. The Major tries to change the subject to show sympathy for Olga's daughter, who was killed by Ruthenians before, but Olga ignores this instead, shedding some light onto Olga's past a bit for us. The Major takes his leave, but not before dropping some random soldiers onto Olga for some mandatory battling, and this can be especially tough if you didn't prepare any extra ammo ahead of time. But thankfully we made it through and escaped the slums. Olga makes her way to wherever the Ruthenian soldiers are in order to have a chance to get out of Novoslava entirely, and luckily Koshka points her into the direction where Mikhail is at. Speaking of Mikhail, we jump back to him for Chapter 3. He plans on finding the 14th platoon to back him up. We'll need to navigate the streets filled with Garmonian soldiers, but the best play is to head down into the sewers that we were in for Chapter 1. I'll spare you the painful process of me trying to figure out where to go and dealing with all the annoying survivors. Just know it's all annoying, unavoidable, and I died a lot. On our way over, we do encounter a French freelance reporter, Patrick Lemaire.
Apologies, mon ami. I wasn't trying to sneak up on you.
Patrick tells us the situation is bad, and if we don't find a way out, we'll only be crushed by the Garmonians, as there's no chance Ruthenian will send more additional help. Patrick does have a way for us to get out of the city, but will only tell us after we completed our task of helping out the 14th. And here comes one of the biggest headaches of this game that I just was starting to decide that this game was not fun to play. The woman I talked about earlier is here. If you don't choose the right dialogue option, she will just off herself. So here's me repeating this segment a few times over in order to save her.
Stupid. You're right. There's no reason to do anything anymore. Even live.
And yes, I had to go through the Patrick cutscenes a few times to get this right, and all the loading screens in between. But here's the sad part. After I saved this woman, it gets worse. After I saved the woman from herself, it's time to get her to a shelter. But the problem, there's a whole army between her and the shelter. I stopped her from progressing until I was able to clear the way, and I did so by using a Wanzer, and this thing is just really cool to use at first. Having to blast through all of the enemies in my way and destroying their own Wanzer felt really cool. That is, until the woman I was trying to save managed to get the eyes of the enemy foot soldiers, who then killed her.
Subject of protection
All
has
right,
encountered
finally.
the enemy. Go to the rescue. The civilian is dead.
So, after she was killed, I decided to reload my save because at this point, I was still really trying to get the best ending for this game, so I go back, I reload my save, I go through the Patrick cutscenes again. I mean, I skip through it, but still, it's annoying to go through the whole cutscenes and loading screens and whatnot. I go through her dialogue, save her, and repeat this whole segment again until I can properly save her this time. And finally, after we're done with all of that and saving the woman on top of it, we rush over to find the 14th platoon destroyed. This was gonna happen anyways, there's no way you can save them, so don't worry about me being too slow to save them, it was gonna happen mandatory anyways. Just as we found the remains of the platoon, Patrick sends us coordinates to meet up with him, as if he was watching us from afar. Huh, interesting. We make our way to Patrick, and he says he'll secure an exit for us out of the city if we locate a civilian named Vladimir Bunin, a councilman for Novoslava. Patrick states that Vladimir may have had a hand in starting the war, plans for a new Wanzer model was illegally copied from the UCS, and the illegal copies ended up in Novoslava, and Vladimir will be the ideal person to help with securing the proper help and materials for creating the Wanzer. Patrick wants to figure out how this all connects and will need Mikhail's expertise. Mikhail has no other real option, so he agrees anyways. Which makes you really wonder, why is Patrick so invested in this? I get that he's a freelance reporter, but I don't know if most people would go out of their way to figure all this out. Maybe they do, I don't know, but crazy. We swap back to Olga for Chapter 4, and her new goal is to reach the harbor, as that's where the majority of retreating Ruthenian forces are heading, so that's probably her best chance of survival. But before we do that, we get word that a Ruthenian soldier needs help, and that soldier is Mikhail, so we go to rescue him. Mikhail is located at the top of a construction site alongside with the girl we saw from Chapter 2. But before we can extract them to safety, a large group of enemies are heading their way over, and it's a defensive mission to protect them both. He's kind of out of commission right now, so we're on our own. I didn't know there's actually an item box down below at the lower levels of the construction site, so I could have used that to get some more ammo and some guns, but unfortunately I didn't know that, so I just relied on my pistol and a few supplies I had on me the entire fight. Even though I was low on pistol ammo and resources to make explosive and traps, I got through it, and I felt kind of badass for handling it like that, I'm not gonna lie, so felt pretty good. Mikhail thanks us and tells us we did well for a civvy.
You did well out there. For a civvy.
Whoa, okay man, like, we just saved your life, like, calm down, that's not cool at all. The two of them butt heads, doubting each other's abilities to help one another, but it ends with both of them separating from each other rather than sticking together. The girl wakes up and runs off, telling Olga not to touch her, an important detail to track for later. Koshka was able to ID her though. Her name is Yulia Shmernova, an orphan who lost her parents during the Novoslava riots. Also, we lost her as well, so we have to find her again. This kid is just so good at running away. On our way over, we find the civilian that made me give up on saving all of them. This delusional man thinks Olga is his wife, who sadly seems to be one of the dead women on the ground around him. After trying to trick the man into thinking we're his wife to bring him to a vacation to a shelter, he finally follows. And as we escort this man back to the shelter, his pathing only brings him right in front of an enemy tank. Now with the limited resources I have and the weapons that I have as well, I don't have a RPG or anything to take out a tank, I just simply decided to give up. I was tired of playing this game with all the civilians. It makes no sense for me to take on a whole tank with whatever I had, a pistol and submachine gun, so I just gave up on this whole entire civilian saving mechanic. I feel bad, and as I was leaving, Koshka kept repeating to me that the man was under attack, and eventually...
Civilian is under attack. The civilian is dead.
That was the end of him. And that'll be the last civilian I try to save for this game, so I'm so sorry. And because we're only on Chapter 4 and it's this annoying, I can only assume it's going to get harder later on, so I gave up. Olga finds the same commander who nearly kills Mikhail and his commander from chapter 1. Turns out this man is from another country, Zaftra, not Garmonia. Seems like the two countries are working together somehow. He's also looking for Bunin, so we can only hope Mikhail will find him first. As we battle our way through the city to find an escape, we also find the Wanzer production data, which happens to be the same thing that Patrick was looking into. The harbor seems to be where the Wanzer is located, which happens to be where everybody wants to go next. And the best way to get there is via underground. As we enter the underground, Olga finds a well-dressed man executing somebody. Kashka IDs the man as Ruslan Ismailov, the leader of the NGFP, the Novoslava Liberation Group. The only problem though, he's supposed to be dead and he's walking right in front of us. How is that possible? But before we can make any other moves, Olga is held up at gunpoint by another man who she thought was Ruslan. But dropping Ruslan's name only worries the mysterious new gunman. And this will be our last protagonist, Leonid, a member of the same liberation group as Ruslan. He's supposed to be dead via execution, but he's, you know, right here, well alive as well, so what the hell is going on? And he runs off to get to the bottom of this. As Olga makes her way through the underground, she receives word that Ruthenian soldiers have retreated Novoslava entirely, so her best chance is to go to the harbor for an escape, but the Garmonian soldiers will be heading there as well, so her situation's not looking good at all. Chapter 5 will be our first mission with Leonid the Ghost himself, who I'll be referring to as Leo for the rest of the game now. Leo's first goal is to find a weapon, and Koshka says the best location for weapons is in a nearby building, which is a lie because the building is not even nearby us, it's on the other side of the map, so let's get to hustling. At the building, we find no survivors except for one woman named Sophia, an acquaintance of Leo, the same liberation group as well. Leo's execution was fake and he was sentenced to life in prison. Sophia tells him to meet her at a bar that they once hung out at as she has something there that she wants to show him. And now's the time to head to the other side of the map because that's where the bar is at. Painful times. I will say though, this chapter was fairly short in terms of story and lore breakdown, but the gameplay made it seem extremely long as I had to go from one side of the map to the other and then back over again. Having to find the best route to avoid as much combat as I can was very tough. And to top it all off, at the very end of the mission, there was a huge wall of snipers who were ready to gun me down. Oh, and snipers are very strong in this game. 2 shots will easily take you out. But because of how dumb the AI is, I literally just sat behind a wall until the snipers gave up and I snuck by them all. I don't know how I did it, but I did it. The level ends with Leon taking a dip in the river to escape soldiers nearby, and he was lucky the river wasn't frozen due to all the cold around him, but hey, that's just luck, I guess. Post-editing code here, I just realized I called him Leon, not Leo, but I think you guys get the point anyways. So we are on chapter 6, and this is where a lot of dumb things happen, but it's okay. You'll see. We're back to Mikhail for chapter 6 with the objective of finding Bunin. Now, due to the information we found from Olga, we actually don't need to find Bunin anymore, as Koshka can confirm that we obtained this information from last chapter. We are now sure that there's an illegal Wanzer at the harbor, but Mikhail won't let that affect his job of saving civilians, so we're off to save Bunin anyways. Cutting out all the battling and running around, we find Bunin at the council building, but before we can extract him out, we'll have to deal with the enemy forces moving on him. Now, luckily for me, there's a whole minigun here to use, but it makes you very slow and it makes a really weird sound whenever you walk around. I really wish I can pinpoint what the hell that sound is, but I cannot for the life of me figure it out. Unfortunately for me though, the minigun runs out of ammo really quickly, which sucks because I didn't get much of a chance to play with it, sadly. I wanted to mow down a lot more enemies. We successfully defended the building though, and I'll admit, this is one of the more fun parts of the game. They even prep this area with a lot of ammo and items to help you defend, so I like that a lot. And you can almost always tell that the game's gonna throw you into a big battle when it throws you a lot of free items and ammo. So we successfully defeated all the soldiers, and now we can save Bunin, and just watch the sequence. Just watch it.
Come on! I'm dying for a breath of fresh air.
Wait! You idiot!
And once the cutscene is over, Bunin is dead. This is one of the more stupider moments of the game. We literally saved this man only for him to just walk out of the building by himself to die. He didn't even check if the coast was clear, he just walked right out. I guess the idea was to show off how dumb and overconfident Bunin is, which they got across, that's fine, but holy cow, was this a wasted effort because we already had the data from Olga's side, so why did we come here anyways to save the guy who was just gonna die 2 seconds after we defended him against a billion soldiers? But even though Bunin is dead, all is not lost. He had some data on him that proves of the illegal Wanzer production. So I guess this combined with Olga's information combined combining it together, we'll be able to have a strong case that it is in fact at the harbor. Unfortunately though, things do take a turn for the worse. The same Zaftra commander catches up to Mikhail. The Zaftra commander tells Mikhail to run, as pretty much every enemy in the area is alerted to your position and you have to run as they're all on your ass. It's painful as we're trying to dodge bullets and not die while also trying to escape all the enemy soldiers in this area. Thankfully for us as the player, we don't have to go all the way across the map to get to safety, as once we approach a certain point, we're saved by Leonid. But wait, wasn't he just swimming in the water just now? Actually, this happens to be right before he jumped into the water, so there's a bit of like odd sequencing with the levels that you can tell. They escape to a building where they stop to talk to each other to kind of get close to each other and bond. Leo is trying to encourage Mikhail to stand up for himself and to accept that he's weak right now to become stronger, or else his current attitude will get him killed and others as well.
Cowards like you get their friends killed, and then eventually they get themselves killed. Sometimes things just don't go as planned. The moment you realize that is the moment you get strong.
I get it. No, on second thought, I definitely don't.
Oh my god, Mikhail, shut up, I swear! The two separate from each other as Leon needs to go find Ruslan and Mikhail needs to go find Patrick. Mikhail decides to find a Wanzer to deal with the enemy forces rather than sneak away. I'm still trying to figure out if this is his way of trying to repay Leo for saving him, or maybe there's too many enemies in the way of trying to get to the harbor. Whatever, the case is, he wants to find a Wanzer and kill people, so let him do that. Anyhow, we literally sneak up and just steal this Wanzer from the enemies right in front of them, because we can just do that, man. Metal Gear shit, I guess. Let's go. And it's back to mech combat, baby. And I'll admit, it's really fun to use the mechs, but the problem is that they're made out of paper mache and they break really easily. The enemy mechs can be destroyed fairly quickly and can be stun locked, so once you get the first hit on them, you just keep hitting them until they die, and that goes actually the same for you. If you get hit enough, you get stun locked and you can go down pretty fast. And I had to repeat the segment a few times, so I know very well how weak these mechs are. Once you get through the enemy mechs, the entire map is now marked as safe. So if you wanted to save civilians, this is the best time to do so, because the entire map is just really open for you to just do whatever the heck you want. And it's really rare for this game to do this. In fact, I think this is the only level of the game that actually does this at all. But because I didn't save any civilians in the last few maps, I kind of gave up and just moved on, so didn't matter to me. Mikhail and Patrick meet up, but Patrick nearly kills the deal as Boonin was supposed to be there as well. But with the data that Mikhail obtained off of Boonin's body, it further proves the Wanzer's existence at the harbor. Patrick is a bit suspicious of how everything came together this easily, but he asks of Mikhail's help further because they need to investigate some more, so he sends Mikhail off to an old car factory in the slums. So here we are at chapter 7, and at this point I started rushing levels because I was getting over the game at this point, so moving on. Olga is at the harbor and her plans to find a containment ship to get out of here. At the same time though, she does want to investigate the Wanzer that everyone's after, so she wants to look into that as well while she's here. At this point, the game presents you with two different objectives to find enemy tents to get more information of where this Wanzer may be at. Nowadays when I play games though, whenever I'm presented with different objectives and it's like, one of these might be the correct option, I usually check the furthest away option because I usually assume that's probably what's gonna be. It's always so strange to me. A lot of games do this where it's like basically they make you have options of like, hey, one of these tents is actually the real objective while the other ones are decoys, and it's almost always the one that's further away from you. So what I opt to do now in a lot of games is I just check the furthest away option, and turns out that was the correct option. I don't know if the other one was like a fake, but whatever, we found it, let's move on. Once we finally made it to the tent, thankfully the soldiers inside talk loudly enough for Olga to confirm the existence of something in the warehouses. We head inside the warehouses, but instead of finding an illegal Wanzer, we find Yulia locked up in a cage instead. How do we keep running into her like this? This is kind of crazy. Yulia seems like she wants to leave the city, but she clearly knows something that prevents her from leaving easily. Olga wants to help Yulia, as she reminds her of her own deceased daughter. Yulia starts to wonder if Olga's helping her for her sake or for her daughter's sake. Olga does admit that in a way she wants to atone for her past, but regardless she still wants to help out Yulia anyways because she can't do it on her own. Their talk is cut short though as the Major finds the two, but Yulia was able to slip a phone to Olga. It becomes clear that the Major and the Doctor were working together before he got him killed in chapter 2. They were both trafficking children. Although Olga wants to bring the Major to justice, he says that won't do any good, as he was secretly being supported by both the governments of Ruthenia and Garmonia. So clearly something is going on here that's deeper than we thought. with a lot of political corruption as well. The Major takes Yulia and locks Olga in the cage in her stead. Then the Major says to Olga that they ought to have a little fun together, so take that as you will. It's kind of disgusting if you think about it the other way. And in another twist, somebody else walks in, Ruslan. The Major thanks Sir Murgle's help for being the reason as to why they're winning the war. The name Sir Murgle is mentioned here, but remember that name for later. And the Major hands over the illegal Wanzer to Ruslan. But before Ruslan was able to let him go, he notices Olga in the cage and questions as to why she's there. The Major says it's for personal affairs, but Ruslan finds it disgusting and shoots the Major in the back of the head. Honestly, good for him. I kind of root for that as well. Ruslan walks off with Yulia, leaving Olga in the cage. So how will she escape? We'll find out soon enough. Chapter 8 is the shortest out of all the chapters because I literally booked it to the end of the level. There's an optional objective to try and distract the enemy forces, but I said, screw that. All you really need to know about this is that Mikhail eavesdrops on Sophia and Ruslan's meeting, killing off all former associates of Sophia's and Ruslan's. At this point, you can think of Ruslan being a double or triple agent at this point. He lied to so many people, but he has like a secret agenda underneath everything. Ultimately, he says he's fighting for the future of humanity. He spares Sophia though and takes his leave. Mikhail comes out and he talks to Sophia. She feels as if everything she's done was a wasted effort because she played into Ruslan's hand. But Mikhail gives her some words of encouragement rather than feel hopeless despite all that's happened and to keep fighting rather than give up. She gets back up and goes to find Leo, and that's the end of chapter 8. Short and sweet. We are back to Leo for chapter 9, picking up after he swam away from all the enemy soldiers. He wants to go meet up with Sophia at the bar. And from here until the end of the level, there are so many enemies everywhere, it just seems so hard to avoid everyone. It's just like, there's almost no sneaking involved at this point. I do play it back in my head. I wonder if I would have just like been smarter and like throw fireworks to distract people, I may have got around like the levels by sneaking. I don't know, it is what it is. I got tired of sneaking anyways, so I just blasted my way through. But out of nowhere, Ruslan is found just roaming the streets by himself, and he and Leo square off. Leo confronts Ruslan on his betrayal, and surprisingly enough, Ruslan is very forthcoming about everything, from manipulating people and saying that he just outright doesn't care about all these people. To him, everybody is a chess piece on the board, including himself, in a huge game. Regardless though, Ruslan is fighting for what he calls the perfect future, and he's willing to kill Leo for it. And here's our real first boss battle. For the most part, there's nothing too crazy about this boss battle. It's as if you're fighting a bullet sponge super soldier. Ruslan will occasionally throw out grenades and a drone that I don't really know what it does exactly because I shut it down as soon as possible, so I didn't let that linger too long. But overall, really cool battle. Fire all around the battlefield, snow, cool stuff. I enjoyed it a lot. At one point though, Ruslan threw a sneaky grenade at me, and it was really funny seeing Leo just fly up. I don't know, just couldn't take it seriously. Leo defeats Ruslan. Ruslan remarks how this isn't how he dies, but
this is not where I die.
Yeah. The level is not done yet though. We need to get to the bar where Sophia is at. And between here and there though, there's a group of enemies as well as tanks and snipers to stop us, so it wasn't an easy trip at the end of the level. Sophia gives Leo a data card that contains the stolen Wanzer plans and also reveals that Ruslan was a spy for Zaftra the entire time. Sophia instructs Leo to go to the harbor to save Mikhail and find the Wanzer that everyone is looking for. For chapter 10, we're back to Mikhail and we're heading to the harbor. But before that, we're shown Olga listening to the phone that was given to her by Yulia. The phone contains records of a bioweapon that was experimented on with lost and orphaned children, Yulia being one of these children. Dr. Lavrov left this behind in hopes that somebody will find this and expose it to the public. And as Olga listens to the recording, somebody approaches her and the cutscene ends. Mikhail, on the other hand, eavesdrops on the Zaftra commander. The commander is clearly unaware of the whole subplot of a bioweapon in Yulia, so he's pretty much in the dark as much as we are. But the location of the Wanzer is revealed at least, so Mikhail heads for the warehouses. Oddly enough though, Olga isn't in her cage anymore, and I can't tell who freed her. Either way, we sneak our way over to the warehouses. So there's like 2 warehouses. I thought the first one I was in was the one that we're supposed to be at, because it doesn't really tell you on the objective marker which one is the correct one. So I sat there in front of this like random mech just sitting there thinking the game would progress. It didn't. I was at the wrong one. But you'll know you're finally in the correct one because there's a whole cutscene and you get locked inside to battle all the guards inside. But after the battle, you'll get a huge lore drop cutscene, so get ready for me to explain everything in a quick summarized fashion. After the battle, Patrick shows up and the biggest surprise of the game shows up.
Well fought, Staff Sergeant Shuvalov. Apparently this mech is codenamed Volk. I did a brief analysis before you arrived.
Patrick isn't French. It was all an act. What? This mech is known as Volk, and it looks crazy cool, honestly. I kind of dig the design a lot. Patrick clearly isn't some kind of freelance guy working for the press, but for something more. Here we learn what Smergel is, and that is a nationalist group that holds control of Zaftra. And you can kind of think of them as kind of like the Illuminati of the game right now. orchestrating various world events and conflicts, and even the liberation fighting from Leo's time back in the day. Smeargle is even working on that said bioweapon. It's a blood-borne virus, meaning that it's transmitted through the exposure of infected blood. Not related to the game, I'm sorry. This is the true reason as to why the war started between Ruthenia and Garmonia, to act as a test for this blood-borne virus. Patrick doesn't know all the details, but he has an inkling that Smeargle has planned for worse things to come. Lastly, we ask Patrick as to who he actually is, but he refuses to reveal his true identity and who he works for. But he's good on his word and will send for an escaped helicopter to extract Mikhail and others. Oh, and he reveals that he learned all this information from Olga, who he freed earlier, so that's how Olga got freed. And out of nowhere, that same commander jumps out and reveals that he was listening the entire time. He's freaking out because of everything he learned from Patrick, hoping that it was all fake, but Patrick assures him that it's all true. Patrick drops some more information. The virus is called euthanasia, and because of its bloodborne properties, the commander was just a tool to spread as much blood and death as possible in the area to make it work. And he also docks the commander's name, Ivan Zaschev. Ivan now gets why Zaftra hasn't sent additional backup, because he was sent to cause as much chaos and death as possible to eventually die to the virus to tie up any loose ends. Without any real plan, he takes Mikhail and Patrick away while he figures out what to do next. Now, Chapter 11. Leo makes his way over to the harbor to find Mikhail and the Wanzer, but he'll need to move quick because Mikhail's being moved by Ivan fast. So Leo decides to hack the new mech and uses it to go save Mikhail. I said it once and I'll say it again, the mech's design is really cool. It feels really next-gen with its sleek and intimidating look versus the big and blocky designs that previous mechs had. It also comes with a railgun, making it the only mech in the game with one. But sadly, outside of those aspects, that's the only cool parts about this robot. It's as durable as any other mech, so not very. It lacks any real firepower. It has a machine gun, a shield, and a railgun. That's it. Versus other mechs with their dual missile launchers and or dual wielding machine guns. To stop Patrick and Mikhail's transport, Leo fires a railgun at the ship. The explosion caused enough damage to either disorient or kill everyone in the area. And thankfully, it only disoriented Mikhail, so we're good there. Leo saves Mikhail, but Patrick is nowhere to be seen. Probably got away alive knowing him though. And once again, out of nowhere, Ivan pops out with a mech to make his stand against Leo and Mikhail. Mikhail is told to make his way to the extraction zone while Leo distracts Ivan. Now, I found this part of the game to be slightly disappointing because the whole game hyped up Mikhail and Ivan to fight each other. The young soldier versus the bloodthirsty veteran. Throughout the entire game, Ivan taunts and practically tortures Mikhail by killing people around him. But instead of having Mikhail fight Ivan, we get Leo instead. So once again, I am a bit sad that this happened, but hear me out. First off, mech battles are still pretty sick, I like it. And second, something will happen later that kind of makes this point moot, so don't worry too much about it. It's kind of a rough battle, and I actually didn't know how the railgun worked. The way the railgun works is essentially by you press the button once to get it loaded, and once you do that, you become stuck in place and you pretty much become a turret. But once I got the hang of things, everything died really quickly, so the fight against Ivan ended up very fast, so that would have been another thing that disappointed me too, how fast the mechs die in this game. Maybe it's a normal mode thing or something, but Ivan is dead, whatever, we can move on. It's sad the way the battle ended, but it is what it is. But we can't celebrate too early though, because there are other mechs to fight. And I was stuck on this part for another 15 minutes because the mech battling is that rough. In particular, there's a mech hiding later behind these crates, and once you show yourself, he'll start mowing you down instantly and stun locking you into death. So what you have to do is you have to jump him faster than he can jump you and kill him before he kills you. Once all the enemies are defeated, Leo makes his way over to Newtown where the helicopter extraction is going to be at, and this is the finale of the game coming up real soon. Chapter 12 marks the beginning of the end. We're at the last 3 chapters of the game, and each one has the main characters basically wrapping up their story arc in their respective chapters. First one is Olga. Yulia's around here, and Olga wants to make one last attempt to save her. And I'll admit, I kind of like Olga's story a lot. It shows that she's trying to make amends for her past by trying to save Yulia as a second chance, so kind of dig it a lot. Olga has a secondary objective of helping Mikhail and the team fight off enemy squads to make their lives easier, but I just went to do the main objective because I just can't be bothered. Olga runs into Ruslan. Wait, he's supposed to be dead. Wait, what? Ruslan questions why Olga's doing all of this for the sake of Julia, as it's all so small in the grand scheme of things. Debating the ideas of what's right and what's wrong, and saying that Julia can't be saved. But Olga's pretty badass though. She said she wants to save Yulia regardless of it all. Ruslan doesn't fight back and instead just gives her the location of Yulia, telling her to hurry. We can only assume that Ruslan probably doesn't need or care about Julia anymore. It's a really tough battle between here and Julia. There's a lot of tough enemies, some with rocket launchers that will one-shot you when they hit you, so whoever thought about this, evil. And to top it all off, the final boss of this area, you fight off against a whole-ass Wanzer. But like I said earlier, Olga is a badass and she will move mountains to save Yulia, so Yulia, you better appreciate all this, I swear. A few missiles and the Wanzer's taken down, which really makes me question how durable these things are, and I probably could be in them in earlier levels. Also, I don't know what's up with this guy's AI. He's like going across the whole entire battlefield throwing down smoke bombs. I don't know what's going on here. Sometimes the AI is smart, and sometimes the AI is just stupid. We caught up to Yulia, and before you think it's a simple rescue mission, you have to succeed into talking her out of offing herself. She doesn't want anybody to use her as a bioweapon, and it's really sad that a kid her age is talking like this. And I'll be honest, I was at a loss of what to say to calm her down, but for some odd reason, some part of me said, I picked the option that said, then let me do it. I honestly didn't know if the other options were any better, so I just said, if you had to die, I'll do it. But when Olga pointed her gun at Yulia, I almost freaked out, but I let it play out instead because I was like, you know what, I'm curious. And thankfully I did, because Yulia just walked up and gave her a big hug. And that was the end of that arc. Yulia is saved, and thank God I don't have to repeat that chapter because that was painful. Now, Mikhail is up to the plate in Chapter 13 with his job to distract all the enemies away from the helicopter extraction zone. And I'll admit, this level is pretty fun. It's a huge open level with a lot of Wanzers for you to use, and it's a one-man army against so many other soldiers, tanks, and Wanzers as well. Once you defeat all the enemies, the Volk Wanzer suddenly reappears. Early in the game, it did mention there's at least 2 models being made. One was at the harbor, so this must be the second one. Koshka is a bit worried that this might be a trap by Ivan, but Mikhail decides to take it anyways. Ivan challenges him to one last fight, and it seems like he survived the battle against Leo, despite that mech blowing up, weirdly enough, and Mikhail steps up to the plate to fight him. So that whole thing I mentioned earlier about my disappointments of the game where Leo fight Ivan, that can just be disregarded, because now we have Mikhail fighting Ivan, and that is kind of a badass moment, I'm not gonna lie. But all that badassness is thrown out the window because this battle was rough. I had no idea where Ivan was when the battle started, but this dude can jump and fly around and move faster than me. He kicked my ass so many times. After a few attempts, the battle is over though. I just had to abandon the Volk mech to go get another one, and then just pretty much gun him down and lock him until he died. Anticlimactic, but whatever, I got the battle done and I'll take that. Ivan tries to egg on Mikhail to kill him, but I chose a hero route of not killing Ivan and be the better man. I guess that's one good way of looking at Mikhail's story. He was pushed to be a killer like Ivan, but at the end of the day, he's not gonna give in to Ivan's influence and just become the person he wants to be and let him live. Yeah, let him live. Maybe next time. We'll see this whole thing wrap up in the next sequel for Left Alive 2. Surely we'll see that finale again one day. Lastly, we are at Chapter 14. This is the final chapter. I almost quit playing this game at a certain point, but I already recorded some footage and I spent the money, so I was like, alright, let's just see it through to the end. And we play as, lastly, Leo, as he makes his way to the extraction zone. And it's a large battle between here and there. So many tanks, tough enemies, and you can't really play it too stealthily before, but thankfully I did previously because I have so many strong guns and ammo to spare for this mission. There's also a segment where you can man a Wanzer like a turret from Chapter 1, so it's a nice throwback to complete this full circle for the whole game. Although Leo made his way to the extraction building, he'll need to clear out all the enemies here to make it safer. I almost had it on my first try, but then I didn't realize there was 3 more enemies in the inner part of the area, so I just got destroyed. But regardless, I made it through finally. Once I did, Ruslan pops out to greet Leo. Ruslan reveals that he saved Leo by falsifying all the documents and preventing his death in the past. But the real question here is, how is Ruslan still alive? That's I want to know that. But before we can get any more answers, Ruslan fights us and it's a rematch. However, Ruslan comes equipped with a minigun and shotgun dual-wielding combo, wielding each one in each hand? What the hell is this guy made out of? But overall, it's a cool battle. It's a funky one though, because he kind of glitched out and was able to shoot me through a wall. I don't know, I'm not gonna question it anymore. But this Ruslan is far more aggressive than the original battle where he kind of took cover and kept his distance away from you in the first battle. He'll even charge at you multiple times and knock you down, and honestly it felt like a horror game at this point. I kind of loathed it, but also enjoyed it at the same time. At a certain point though, once you dealt enough damage, he'll drop both guns and switch over to his revolver, which will hurt you if it touches you. And it's funny because when I finished him off, he just ragdolls like everybody else, so kind of funny. As Ruslan is dying, he said he's glad he was able to keep Leo alive to finally give him rest. Ruslan instructs Leo to shoot him in the eye as that will finally stop him. And surprise, Ruslan is not actually a human anymore but a cyborg, hence why he's so calculated, robotic even, in personality, and just why he wouldn't die when a normal man should have several chapters ago. With Ruslan defeated, Leo makes his way to the rooftop and the game is finished. Oh, never mind. Ruslan lives and he brings out a special Wanzer to fight. This man should have been dead. He even told us how to kill him and he's still alive. I don't get it. So, all of our weapons cannot defeat this mech, but luckily Patrick is here to save the day. He drops a laser designator and all we have to do is aim it at Ruslan and Patrick is able to shoot off a missile to shoot him for big damage. It's kind of cool. It reminded me of Resident Evil games, how it ends with you having some kind of special rocket launcher or a special weapon to fight off the final boss. in that way rather than use your own weapons, so kind of a cool throwback. It reminded me of that a little bit. As a whole, you pretty much aim the laser at the boss and that's the whole fight. Presentational wise, it sounds cool, but slowly it gets kind of boring as you're just sitting there just aiming and just dodging the whole time. We destroy Ruslan's Wanzer, and that seems to be the end of him, at least until Left Alive 2, which maybe one day will happen. Olga and Mikhail arrive in time and the three are extracted out, and we arrive at the epilogue of the game. Novoslava comes under the control of an international peacekeeping army, but the death tolls are unknown. The majority of the world is in the dark of what happened and why. After this, you will receive an ending based on how you played. And of course, I didn't get all the civilians who needed to be rescued, so I got a subpar ending, nothing too great. Everyone survived, but things aren't exactly the best outcome. Everything is covered up and Leon goes into hiding. Olga stays on the police force despite wanting to quit, and crime is running rampant in Novoslava, worse than before. Mikhail takes a promotion and receives high honors for surviving the events of Novoslava, but it appears that this was all done in order to keep him happy and quiet in order to prevent him from revealing the truth of what happened at Novoslava. So I'm gonna go over the best ending obtained by the YouTuber Joylock Games and stuff, so huge shoutouts to them for actually suffering through all the stupid survivor extraction mechanics and everything to get the best ending possible, because I couldn't do it myself. Leon and Sophia expose the events of Ruslan and the liberation movement. This puts more eyes on the Ruthenian and Garmonian war. Leo joins Sophia's new citizen group to help work for a better future for the country. After the events of the game were exposed, Mikhail was brought on as a key eyewitness. He was offered a special promotion but refused, wanting to return to his old unit instead of being placated by the government. Olga played a key role in Yulia's testimony for her being used as a bioweapon, but only doing so in exchange for her guaranteed safety. Thankfully, a vaccine was developed for Yulia and she was cured. Olga adopts Yulia and she works to make Novoslava a better place. Yulia largely has the same information as Olga, but with an added on of her becoming a police officer just like Olga. Sophia's kind of in line with Leo's, but will also make a move towards a career in politics. Patrick Lemaire is revealed to be a UCS agent, but not much else is revealed about him, not even his real identity. However, because of his efforts in helping and gathering of all the information of what went down in Novoslava, this led to a swift formation of a multinational task force to investigate the events. After that, though, not much else is known. He probably went on to another mission once it was all over. And the commander we rescued all the way back in Chapter 1, he survived, but used his injuries as an excuse to teach the next generation of Wanzer pilots instead of actually fighting himself. He started coaching the local boys soccer team, which went on to winning a global tournament and becoming the symbol of Novoslava. Neat. It's actually kind of funny, I totally forgot this guy existed, but yep, he makes an appearance at the very end anyways. Major Borodin, dead, oof. But Ivan, interestingly enough, disappeared. The Zaftra army has no record of anyone with his name, as if he was wiped out entirely. But there have been reports of an illegal anti-Semergal group, and one of its leader goes by Zastchev, the same last name as Ivan. And finally, Ruslan is confirmed dead. The reports show that he had cybernetic enhancements added to his body. So, no Left Alive 2 for him. If you rescued all of the civilians, they'll appear on a list of witnesses, which makes sense as to why they need to live, to help prove the events of that went down. And before you think the game is over, if you did everything right to get the best ending, you're treated to one final scene. Koshka is sharing information with M3, Semergal's AI. Despite their plans not working in Novoslava, Koshka wants to forward all the data that she spent her time in Novoslava with all the players, and the two are ready to move on to the next phase of their plans, and the game ends there. Left Alive is far from being the worst game I've ever played in my life, and trust me, I've played some pretty bad games before. But I'm also not saying it's a good game, but it's a solid 4 out of 10, below average game. I really cannot recommend this game to anybody out there unless you really have a weird, mild curiosity like I do with wanting to play these weird bad games, so there you go, it's out there for you, but I don't recommend it at all. And the price tag of $60 is a lot of money, like, come on, like, think twice before you buy this game at, like, full price. Like, maybe at $5 once again, take it or leave it, but that's the most I'm recommending for this game. I played the game as I would without really seeking out any glitches in the game, and I didn't really see too much jank. There still was a bit of jank here and there, but not much to really tank my experience or how much other people saw in their other reviews, because I really didn't see too much of that. Maybe there were some patches post like launch of the game and I was watching some like day one footage and things have changed since, but as of right now, not too much jank, and I mean, the game itself is janky in its own right, but not too much unintentional jank. The story is not so bad. I can see how they went about the structure of it and the theming of it, and I love the whole conspiracy thing and how everyday people are wrapped up in being pawns in a greater scheme. It does feel a bit awkward at times and a bit rushed, and if I had to hazard a guess, maybe the game was suffering a bit in development, so they had to pretty much rush the story out the door as soon as possible. It's clear that if this game was to succeed, there would be more games in the series, and that's a very tall order, I know. So obviously more of the plot would be revealed, especially since we had that post-stinger credit scene after everything, after you get the 100% ending. It's a real shame because the game was released about almost 6 years ago, and there's no news of any new Front Mission game, I believe, or Left Alive like 2, so it's kind of dead in its tracks right now. Left Alive is a game, and that's my last words on it, really. My biggest advice to Square Enix is to like reduce the price, like make it like, I don't know, $5. Like let people just try the game at this point to try it out, because the game is not going to get any sales with its $60 price tag, let's be honest here. If I had to compare my time with this game versus say another Square Enix flop, I would personally say that I like Various Daylife a lot more than I played with Left Alive. Various Daylife just had a lot of grind to it, which wasn't entirely fun, but I would take that over having to clutch it out with really tough battles and then having to sneak around, even though like it got really frustrating when I died and I had to go back and restart and sneak around again. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you watching this video, and this game has left me more dead than alive after I've beaten it. Alright, I made the crappy joke. There you go, I said it. Alright, good night, bye-bye. Have a good one. Bye-bye, guys.